Tonight on Spectrum Hawaii, what's in a name? For Hawaiians, names are symbols of culture and tradition, and an important link to a proud heritage. And travel with us to Maui for a very special rodeo just for young people. But first, in 1987, Gary Ewan set out to paddle the Kaiwi Channel in a one-man canoe. He wanted to commemorate the birth of his son, Kaiola, and carried with him Kaiola's umbilical cord.
So I saved his piko, and since I had family in Molokai and Oahu and lived on both islands, I decided to place his piko in the ocean between Oahu and Molokai. And that's where I decided to start, why I decided to start the race.
The race was Gary's personal challenge to paddle solo across the 42-mile Kaiwi Channel during the Molokai Hoi, a men's race for 9-man teams paddling outrigger canoes. The popularity of this solo journey was slow to grow. It wasn't until 1991 that Gary was joined by fellow paddler Keahi Omai. The two met as crew members aboard the voyaging canoe Hokulea. Since then, the field of solo paddlers has expanded, and the 1996 competitors include 8 men and 1 woman. Norma Santiago crossed the channel 12 times with Nawahine Okekai. This will be her second solo attempt. Defending champion for the last 2 years is Wayne Hess of California. He first learned of this one-man race through a news article sent to him by his best friend, George Lingle.
Well, he immediately called me and said, "That touches a nerve," which is his favorite saying when he really wants to do something. And he says, "Let's do it together." I says, "Wayne, that's totally out of my league, but I'll support you." And he continued to try to get me to do it, but I supported him during his first crossing. He asked me again during his second crossing. He also wanted me to do the crossing with him. And the third year, I knew I could make the commitment, both time-wise, and my life was in order, that I felt that I could do the training to do it, and I wanted to support him because it was important for him, for the two of us to do it together.
The other paddlers include Herman Meek of Kailua. This is Herman's 3rd consecutive crossing in a one-man canoe. Russell Coble is from Capistrano Beach, California, here to team up with his twin brother, Bob. Kendall Struckness is from Hanalei, Kauai. Keahi Omai makes his 4th solo crossing with Gary, who is making his 10th consecutive crossing in a one-man canoe.
Most of us paddled the channel before with canoe clubs, but I think any of the paddlers who had done the crossing with us, or if they want to call it the race with us, they know for a fact that it all comes from the inside. You're not depending on 5 other paddlers or 8 other paddlers. You're depending on yourself. You know, you get across by yourself. You have a support crew on your support boat, but all the energy it takes to start the race until crossing the finish line is within yourself.
Saturday afternoon, the canoes, the paddlers, and their escort boats assemble at Hale'olono Harbor. The canoes are put in the water for a final shakedown and workout for the paddlers.
Did you ride any of them?
Oh yeah. That's it. That's the question.
Did you fly your Alma?
No.
Why not?
I'm afraid to.
It is also a time for personal reflection.
I'll just go just far enough where I'll be away from everyone and all the other noise. And I'll just try to relate to my ancestral past, and I'll call my grandmother for support for the next day's race. And what led up to that was that prior to coming up to Molokai, I had my canoe blessed, and the Hawaiian priest asked me to do it this way, which used to be a traditional way. And in calling for my grandmother, because I'm being a male, should send me some support.
Great next week.
The crews are up at 2:30 in the morning, preparing for a 4:30 start.
I don't think it's
Pretty dark out for putting sunscreen on, isn't it?
The magic potion, Cliff. I hope it works. Better work.
God bless us tonight, through the day, throughout our lives.
After a morning poulet, the paddlers carry their canoes to the water. Once they're clear of the harbor, the race begins.
The first year I did it with Gary, it was rather scary, you know. I've never been out in the water at night or, you know, in an area you know that's got a lot of big fish, and you're out there in pitch darkness, you know. It's pretty spooky.
We started in the dark for the simple fact that there's no way we can keep up with the 9-man crews. They'll pass us mid-channel, or before they used to pass us mid-channel. 3/4 of the race, most of the canoes are already inshore. And we start 4:30 in the morning. Normally they start about 7:30 in the morning. And now we can almost get to the finish line when they're getting there.
It's now 2 hours since the race started. Daybreak finds Norma getting her second wind.
Once the sunlight comes out, it's like, although you've been paddling 2 hours, it's like you have just woken, you know, and the day has begun, and the real fun starts happening.
For George Lingle, friendship is what helped him overcome the physical and mental challenges of this incredibly difficult paddle.
I was concerned about the wind direction not being to our backs when we first got there, but it turned, and we were able to ride some waves and have the help of the seas. We had literally flocks of flying fish going over our boat, which helped take your mind off the pain and the difficulty that we were feeling in the middle of the channel. My arms were starting to cramp up, and Wayne continued to encourage me, and it was marvelous to have him next to me during that crossing.
Wayne would stay with George for the entire crossing, even though it meant giving up a chance to win this race for the 3rd time in a row.
I saw Gary, you know, he was within striking distance ahead of us, and as it turned out, you know, he was up towards the front of the pack, and I'm going, and to myself, I'm going, George, we can drop this guy. You know, we can drop him anytime we want.
He wanted me to. He wanted me to.
Just give me the word, man. Let's go. But as it turned out for the best. This is my best crossing ever. This is the most memorable of all, and this is the one I'll remember.
While Wayne took himself out of the competition, the others were battling for the distinction of being the first to cross the finish line. Rounding Portlock on the east end of Oahu, Gary, Kendall, and Herman were pretty much neck and neck.
Kendall was coming up strong. He was moving in. I already had probably, 2 gallons of water inside the ama. And Kendall walked by me, then he went right by Gary and continued on, but we were still right there in striking distance of one another.
But in the end, Kendall's struckness would maintain that lead, making this his first solo crossing in 7 hours and 40 minutes.
It was a great race. It was very challenging, my first time, so some things I didn't expect. The water was a little choppy, but there was waves. We were able to surf some waves. And all in all, I had a great time and stoked to be back and even to win. What do you know?
But more than anyone else, this moment belongs to Gary Ewan, the man who a decade ago was the lone paddler to make this voyage in a one-man canoe.
It's just like George said. I mean, it's the people, and Gary's the one who brought it all together. And nobody, he's
Gary's
a champ.
Ohana.
He's the man.
Gary's Ohana.
Gary.
I think people need to learn more about the traditions around language and names. It is not anyone's fault that this has faded over the years. Names in Hawaiian thinking are completely meaning-oriented. The sound of it is important too, but you have to go to what the meaning is. So I think as we get more and more into our Hawaiian language, and the Hawaiian language community is growing, you will have more appreciation for the actual meaning or the mana'o behind the name.
My name is Gordon Kuia, K-U-I-A. I've struggled to find out the root of my last name, My family originally came from North Kohala, and really don't know how that name separated from its original name, and that's one of the maybe hardest thing that I have, finding the meaning of my last name.
Take a look at your genealogy. Oftentimes, though, people won't know what the interpretations of those names are. Or people will have names, even in my family, I'm sure there are some names that we just don't know what they mean. And I think that's in part because the values that were instilled in our kupuna, imposed on our kupuna actually by the non-Hawaiians in the community, led them to believe that it was better that they not talk about Hawaiianness. Things like Hawaiian names, they did not speak Hawaiian or would not speak Hawaiian in front of the children. And so consequently, there's a whole generation or two out there who were told, we don't talk about that kind of stuff. It's not good. We really need to regain that value of, yes, it is okay to have a Hawaiian name. It is important to know who you are and where you come from.
Well, Inoa Po just means Inoa is name, and Po means it comes in the night. And a lot of times, communication with your ancestors are done in sleep, or they're done in the period of time between waking and sleeping. And you'll hear a voice of an ancestor, and it'll be very, very loud and very clear, and you're wide awake, and it's there. And a lot of times they'll bring messages, they'll bring warnings, they'll guide you in one way or another. And sometimes it's done in prayer, and sometimes you can be sitting down eating a bowl of cornflakes, and you'll hear an ancestor's voice that you know immediately, and they'll bring a message.
Inoa. These are portents or omens that are seen either by the grandparent or the parent or some member of the family in the expectation of this new child to be coming to the world. My oldest son was given a name primarily because of effects and omens that did occur. The morning that he was born, lightning and thunder struck a house on St. Louis Heights, and the beam went right through the picture window. So when he came, I said, there's no doubt about it. Your name is Kahekili, the thunder. Here is the balance in which our kupuna, our ancestors, saw the elements of nature so much a part of their life that they were part of it also, and they interacted and related with it. The winds, the earth, everything in nature.
My full name is Bruce Keola Oloi Naluai, and my middle name actually came from my grandfather, and down to my father, and down to me. And Keola, as I understand it, means the life or the living.
Traditionally, Hawaiian names were given in a variety of ways. I think the most obvious, of course, would be what we call Inoa Ohana or Inoa Kupuna. Of course, Inoa in Hawaiian means named, and then Ohana is family, and Kupuna is either your elder or your ancestors. And these names are given to you to usually pay tribute to an ancestor of yours or an elder of yours in the family, that name will live on from generation to generation.
It's hard to encapsulate naming into a very short period of time. But we know from historical times that Hawaiians named according to occasion. They named if something auspicious happened at the time, a name would come, and it would become a living part of that human being.
As an example, there's a hula school that is named for a woman, a teacher, and an entertainer. The school is named Keali'i Ka'apuni Honua Ke'ena Ohula. And that first name, Keali'i Ka'apuni Honua, was the name of Auntie Vicky E.E. Rodriguez. Keali'i Ka'apuni Honua means the chief that encircled the world. And anybody who knows Hawaiian and who knows history can tell you exactly who that name is for. The name is for King Kalakaua, because in 1881, Kalakaua encircled the globe on a world tour, the first world monarch in history anywhere to go around the world. People have called and asked before about using ali'i names, and I think names from the families of our ali'i are not to be given unless you are from that family, and there are people from those families.
Likewise, if it's a proper name, like Kalakaua or Kamehameha or something like that, and someone just takes it, that's like going into someone's house and robbing them. And then to assume that you're going to live up to that name to a Hawaiian person is an insult. So there's a lot of kapi'olanis and kalakauas and kai'olanis running around today, and the Hawaiian people just kind of shudder when they hear that. Like, how the hell do they take on that name. It's like it wasn't theirs to take.
Naming a child or naming anything involves a great deal of responsibility. I think you take on a certain burden when you give names because you are guiding that child or that entity into its course in life.
It's one of the only things that you own outright. Your personally owned piece of property that you can say, it's mine and I can use it. And it's an identity. It's either identity because of its genealogical background or historical background, but it's a cultural identity as well.
Hawaiians understood that what you cast out of your mouth affects our lives on a day-to-day basis, and it controls the spiritual aspects of our inner relationship with others. And to me, that's the heaviness of naming. That's the depth of naming. And that's why it's important.
Well, I grew up with horses. We always had them. My grandpa retired off of a ranch, but we never got to rodeo. Back then, they felt horses were for work. After when I got married, then I was able to start participating in rodeo. And when I had the kids, Brandy was like 4, and she started. And we've been doing it ever since.
I always try to stress with them, with as much as they put in, they're going to get out of it. And the horses are a sensitive machine. You got to take care of them. If not, they're not going to perform for you. And they've come to the point where they really respect their horses and love their horses. We all love our horses like a part of our family. It's not a sport for everybody. But for the kids who want to do it, as a parent, you gotta let them do it.
We got started about 3 years ago. The kids and some of us parents just decided it was time for the kids to have something of their own, and they just band together, and it kind of just came naturally. Just happened. John was the director for that year, my husband, and Calvin has been for the last 2 years.
Hopefully that we can take at least 7 to 10 kids this year to the national finals. Like I emphasize to all the kids and to Calvin, is your work, schoolwork, your grades. You gotta keep them up because you don't have that, you cannot compete.
You have to get a 2.0 grade point average, and I didn't make it. So I didn't get to enter, and then I got better grades. I study harder now, don't mess around in school, because I really want to rodeo. Well, there's a lot that you have to do with rodeo, and that involves taking care of the horses, make sure they're fed and kept in shape for other rodeos. You yourself have to practice so you could become better for each rodeo.
I had a 1976 and she had a 1984, so it was really close. I mean, by the hairs actually. We have another goal yet, and then the average determines the winner, so it's not over yet. It's called a pole bending, and it has 6 poles lined up in the middle of the arena. Oh, James. Go! Use your leg! The girl has to run to the end pole and weave her way in and out. Go, Jessie, go! Ride him! And when she comes to the last pole, on this end, she weaves her way back down. Go, go! Oh, and brings herself home. Keep it on! Actually, you can have the best person just make a mistake and knock a pole, and that costs you your whole run right there. Tell me I did that. Jamie!
She knocked 2 poles in. She got 10 seconds added on. So I guess that gave me a better chance of winning.
I just kind of was like, yeah, I won the battles. Okay, I'm gonna win the poles now. And so I didn't do that. But with Aisha on the poles, so we're kind of equal in the all around now. She's like my competitor. She's what I look for. You know, it's like I watch her runs. I mean, she's really great for a sophomore. She's giving me competition, and I'm a senior. I think for a girl, I'm not your ordinary girl, because I don't see too much girls going out and doing double mugging and stuff. And I'm like the only one in the whole state of Hawaii.
I was about 10 when I first got into rodeo. I used to watch my auntie ride, and I just wanted to ride. And so she helped me. That's how I became good.
Everybody wants to see everybody else do good, you know, not only ourselves. I think that's a big part of it.
She's got a lot of confidence from it, you know, and yet she's humble enough to support the other competitors and stuff. So I look at her and I think that she's made herself a better person through it all.
They get out of the box, they have a hazer on one side and the steer wrestler on the other side. What happens when he calls for his steer, he gets out there and he'll get off his horse and he'll grab him by the horns and he'll turn him and knock him down to the ground. So that's a steer wrestling event.
Not every kid can do it. You know, you gotta have it in you. You gotta wanna do it. You gotta have that hunger in you to do this sport, because it's tough. It's tough out there. You can't just, I wanna be a cowboy and go out there.
When I win, I can be happy but humble, and when I lose, just learn from my mistakes and get better.
You know, once we're out of the arena, what happened in the arena is in the arena. We don't hold it against the person for beating me or anything. It's like just one big happy family, I guess you could say.
We as cowboys, we as people who love the sport, we gotta groom kids so we can enjoy it in the future.
Come on, kick.
And Johnny's kind of following in the sister's footsteps, just wanting to rodeo, nothing else.
It's a sport that I love, and I try to let them go as far with it as they want to. Kind of, be able to do what I couldn't do, and yet not make them do it for me. Do it because they want to do it. Just support them as much as I can, because I know, I only got to dream about it when I